I'll be completely honest with you. The fact that people are actually wanting Mortal Kombat and games to really just be toned down and censored even more than they already have, really, is honestly really stupid. And the fact that it actually got through to the creator's head that they might honestly implement such a mode is actually really disappointing. So let's get into it. But when it comes down to things of Mortal Kombat, recently someone asked Ed if it'd be possible if there is a mode to turn off like the violence and stuff in Mortal Kombat. And now he is considering said option for the streamers and YouTubers and things like that when it comes to, putting the game on YouTube and stuff like that, right? Understandable, right? Because people do often get tired of just having to, take down a video or re-edit it and stuff like that to upload it again because they need to censor some stuff when it comes to the game, and they should just enjoy it the way they want to enjoy it. But also at the same time, no. Let's look at it from multiple angles when it comes down to things. One, the main people that is not going to be buying this game is going to be content creators and, streamers and people like that. No, the main people is going to be buying it is people who are just regular ass people, who just want to go ahead and buy the next Mortal Kombat. And if they see that there is a option, or if there is some toned downments when it comes to the violence in the game, what Mortal Kombat is known for, then they're gonna be like, what the hell is this? This isn't what I paid for. And essentially it's gonna make things look very weird and worse, and not necessarily as good as people would think it would be, honestly. And it's just gonna be like, well, people are just being babies because they can't necessarily handle it. What, you getting demonetized? Too bad, honestly. That's what you gotta get. You should know what you're getting into when it comes to a game like this. What's the point of you censoring a game that you're going to play anyway, right? And things of those sort. Invalid kind of responses in some shape or form. But when it comes down to things, what I fear when it comes to it is that now that we have, censorship like this that might come into play into the future, it's going to be like, well, what else is going to happen? Because keep in mind, Mortal Kombat has already been censored in like one way before, which is their female characters. And even though people like nowadays, don't necessarily like it and be like, oh, this is disgusting, this is messed up, it was a different time, which every time I want to hear somebody say that, I just want to beat their ass with a damn bat until they stop moving. But when it comes down to things, it's just like, fine, you took that away, fine, whatever, stupid, but whatever. But now you're trying to tone down another thing when it comes to what MK is. The same game that created the ESRB rating, and which honestly no one really used to the actual accuracy of an ESRB rating anymore. But when it comes down to things, it's just like, this is stupid and this doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. And what this could honestly lead into is other games being censored, whether it's violence or other type of content, honestly. Now don't get me wrong, I do think that if you have a option in your game, an ultimate optional thing in your game where you are able to censor a game, right? I think that's fine. If you have an option, that is fine. We talked about this before. But here's the thing when it comes down to it. If now everything is going to have an option, or everything that wasn't a problem before starts having an option, that will be kind of like starting to make people forcibly play things with the option on, and it would just kind of make people start seeing the game with like the heavy censorship and things like that. How far is that censorship is going to go? What kind of new problems is that going to arise? Because let's be honest with each other, the reason why a lot of content in games get toned down a lot nowadays is due to ESG and people that has like money that could send something their way to each studio and whatever, but they don't necessarily do it because they want a certain demand to be made when it comes to a game. Like, let's say, sexual content when it comes to certain games, right? And then even that is completely unfair too, because some games get sexual content and you can see full-blown everything, but then other games don't have that much content in it, and they get censored way harder than other games, mainly Japanese games, which is very racist. And when it comes down to things, it just doesn't make any type of sense, right? Like, it really doesn't at the end of the day. And while people could say that, maybe censoring is not necessarily that much of a bad thing. It's needed. And hell, to be perfectly honest, a lot of the devs that work at MK, there was like an incident where someone did go through PTSD of it because they have to look at the deconstruction of the human body and things like that to make it work in their animation in their games. And sometimes you can't choose what you want to do when it comes to that industry. Sometimes you just gotta land the job where you land the job at, and it is what it is. And understandable, I get it. Life sucks, and you gotta sometimes do the things that you don't want to do. But here's the countermeasure though. You have a choice. You have a choice to continue working at NetherRealm Studios if that's what you want to do, and if you're perfectly fine and sane to look up that type of content to fix up, you know, these games and to make their animations brutal and crazy as hell, then okay, cool. But if you are not necessarily ready for that and you don't necessarily think you can handle it, you still at the end of the day have a choice. You could just say, well, I'm not necessarily going to do it and I just want to be, you know, leaving this position right now. Maybe you'll find some other work elsewhere, even though it's, you know, it's hard, but you might find someplace elsewhere that might accept your talents where you don't have to see all that nonsense. Then you have, you know, places where, you know, you could be like, okay, I can take it, but you just have to block it out of your mind in some shape or form. Again, there is ways you can go about it. There is a choice to be made. To be honest, the only person that's going to be suffering is the person that makes the choice. That I feel like it's more on them than it is on the game, if I'm being honest. Even if someone were to commit to making, you know, doing the S word, honestly, which I hope never happens, but even if someone was drove to that point, I would still say it's on the person than it is on the game. Now, I would like to know what exactly it is that they had to see to, you know, make them so messed up, or what they have to think about to make them go that far. But if it's not necessarily anything too crazy, or if it's kind of tame and whatever, then I would still say it's on the person, right? Or maybe the company itself just needs to do a different way of how they can, you know, figure things out of deconstructing the human body. Maybe they don't necessarily need to look up videos and stuff like that to see how it happens. More so, they should just kind of, you know, do something else in a way where, you know, they can figure something else out for fatalities and stuff like that. And that would be fine, right? So I feel like at the end of all of it, it still kind of comes down to the choice of the person of what they want to do instead of the game itself, or really the devs that kind of make the game happen, essentially. But to be perfectly honest with you, I'm less worried about what this is going to do to Mortal Kombat. Instead, I'm worried about what this is going to do for a lot of AAA studio game stuff now. Because if this goes through and this becomes a thing, which I feel like it will, this is just going to be like a sign for more AAA games that really wants to do violent things. They're going to have this censor option too, or maybe just dumb down the whole experience. Let's just be perfectly honest. A lot of M-rated games nowadays are babyish. A lot of them are just absolutely trash when it comes to what they try to do, how they try to act out certain things and stories, whether it's, you know, the characters and how the world is and stuff like that in their games. A lot of it is just really babyish at this point, because they have to hold your hand, explain stuff to you exactly the way they want to explain it to you, just for you to get it, and just for you to basically understand that, oh, this is a good game. Let me explain to you why this is a good game, instead of you experiencing it for yourself. And stuff like that, right? At this point, M-rated is not even really M-rated. It's like a teen rating at this point. That's what it feels like to me. And you have a whole other rating that you can use, but every single other company is gonna block it out if you do use that rating, which honestly is stupid. Use the damn rating. It's not that bad. If it is really that bad, you can always just ban a game. It's not necessarily that damn hard. You can do that. Just do that instead and let people use the adults only rating. It doesn't make sense. My point is this. A lot of games already get the boot when it comes to censorship. A lot of games already get trashed on when it comes to that topic. And to be perfectly honest, this is why a lot of people go to the indies and see what they can create. Because, well, at least with that, they can do whatever the hell they want to. They can make whatever the hell type of game they feel like making at the end of the day. Because they know what they want to see. They know what is possible and what they want to do. Something that these AAA game devs can't necessarily do. And it's completely understandable because a lot of stuff that they try to do or try to appeal to when it comes to a mass amount of people is ridiculous at times, and it doesn't need to be done. Again, you don't need to be censoring every single thing or holding somebody's hand through an M-rated game. I'm an adult. I know what I'm getting into. Let me play the game, and if something happens where some person in the audience go crazy over it in some weird way, that's on them, not on the game and the devs themselves, honestly. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people need to realize. Stop trying to let these games devs hold your hand in things, and understand what you're about to get into, right? Mentally prepare yourself to get into it if you haven't before. So when you see something crazy, whether it's a sex scene or whether it's a murder scene, then you already know that, you know, this is what's to come when it comes to this game. They tell you beforehand, you know, they give you disclaimers beforehand, you play it. And if you ain't ready for it, you just ain't ready for it. If you are ready for it, have a good time, right? At the end of the day, games just need to really stop babying people, honestly. And then people need to stop trying to self-censor themselves when it comes down to things, because it just doesn't help anything at the end of the day. It harms games more than it actually helps them out. Limiting the freedom of expression and speech, and that's just never really good. And again, while I get the sentiment of the streamers and things like that when it comes to streaming Mortal Kombat and stuff like that, violence and, you know, things of the sort, I still feel like at the end of the day, it's just making society and people a lot just weak as shit, and they can't handle anything, that they have to have some type of guardrail to hold on to, because if they start running, oh shit, I'm falling and I'm about to go to the fiery pits of absolute oblivion. It's just like, no, that's not what's going to happen. If you fall, get your dumb ass right back up and then try again. It's perfectly fine. But no, we got to keep basically having our hands being held like we're still trying to be on our motors and stuff like that. And it doesn't make any sense at the end of the day. Like, again, Mortal Kombat is founded on violence. I want to see some nonsense when it comes to it, because there's already been a game that exists with Mortal Kombat where violence has been tremendously toned down and almost killed the company. Do you want to know what game that is? MK vs DC. Seriously, that game almost bodied the hell out of MK just because there was no real deal violence in the game. There wasn't anything too gore and crazy like Mortal Kombat has always been, and it makes sense. Yeah, I'd kill the series too if that was the case, if we had to get more shitty ass games like that. Right? It wasn't what people wanted. And I guarantee you now, the only people that this is going to appeal towards is bad actors and journalists. And the last thing I want to see is that we see Mortal Kombat turn into a basic bitch fest of a game of what it used to be. And essentially everybody's now holding hands in the most weirdest way. A real deal friendship at the end of the game and everything. And basically none of what Mortal Kombat is exists anymore. And hell, translating to other games, none of what those other games that potentially will come out in the future or does want to come out but has to be censored, I don't want those to be watered down either. They shouldn't be watered down experiences just because, you know, a certain group of people can't handle it or anything like that. If you make a game, you should be able to release the game in the way you want to. Like, it doesn't make any kind of sense. At the end of the day, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, all that should be followed to the damn letter when it comes down to things of what people wants to make. And if you don't like it, go find something else to play. But that's essentially what I have for you for this one. Again, the whole thing with, you know, how people want to tone down things nowadays really doesn't make any kind of sense. Because what you're essentially doing is just bringing everybody back to the 1900s, right? Basically going back where everything was modest and, you know, held back, and not necessarily being able to do whatever the hell you wanted to. You know, it just, I don't necessarily get it. Next thing we know, we're gonna have women going back to the damn kitchens because they can't fight. Women shouldn't fight. They're weak as shit. They shouldn't be this way. And men should not necessarily, you know, be respecting towards anybody else outside of what they want and things like that. Soon we'll be going back to the 1950s. I guarantee you, we're gonna pretty much, you know, regress back in time if people don't actually get their shit together now. So, you know, unless you just want that future, which by all means go ahead, But it's gonna be pretty bad for other people. Let's just be completely honest. And then people are gonna be more sensitive and sad and pathetic. And honestly, they can't even go outside their homes for 10 seconds without dying to breathe air. And it just is what it is. But essentially, that's all I have for you for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy it. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on the way out. Also follow me on the socials. And if you'd like to donate to the channel, Patreon is available as well. And until then, it's your boy Jay, signing off. Have a blessed day.